And Jeffrey Edward Epstein, and my residence address is 6100 Red Hook Boulevard in Virgin Islands.
How Epstein built a powerful network. Jeffrey Epstein did not look powerful. He wasn't a household name. He wasn't a tech founder. He wasn't a political leader. And yet, for decades, he moved effortlessly among the most powerful people on Earth. Presidents, princes, billionaires, scientists, media moguls. This raises a question that still unsettles people today. How did one man, with no clear business success, build a network so untouchable that it protected him for years? This story isn't just about crimes. It's about access, influence, silence, and leverage. And it starts much earlier than most people realize.
To put this in context, we've received 33,000 pages. That's less than 1 gigabyte. The FBI has said publicly that there are about 300 gigabytes of files. That means the DOJ today released well less than 1%.
1. The perfect origin story. Epstein's rise didn't begin with money. It began with positioning. In the 1970s, Epstein worked as a teacher at an elite private school in Manhattan. The school catered to the children of powerful families. This environment mattered. It gave him something far more valuable than a paycheck. It gave him proximity. Parents were financiers, lawyers, executives. Epstein learned how they spoke, how they dressed, how they thought. He studied power before he ever touched it. Soon after, he moved into finance, landing at Bear Stearns, an astonishing leap if given his limited credentials. There, Epstein learned the mechanics of wealth: offshore accounts, tax shelters, private investments. But more importantly, he learned something else. The ultra-wealthy value secrecy more than returns. And Epstein made secrecy his product. 2. Selling. Exclusivity, not skill. Jeffrey Epstein did not operate like a traditional financier. There was no public-facing firm, no website explaining his strategy, no transparent record of clients or returns. In an industry built on credibility and proof, Epstein offered almost none of it. Instead, he sold something far more powerful than skill: exclusivity. Epstein positioned himself as a private money manager who worked only for an elite few. His message was subtle but effective. If you didn't understand what he did or how he made money, it wasn't because his methods were unclear, but because you weren't meant to know. Mystery became a feature, not a flaw. This strategy worked because elite circles operate differently from the public world. Among the wealthy, trust is often social rather than analytical. People didn't trust Epstein because they had examined his track record. They trusted him because other powerful individuals appeared to trust him first. That's a central rule of elite networks. Credibility is borrowed, not earned. Once Epstein secured a single influential client, his legitimacy multiplied. Each new association reinforced the perception that he must be important, capable, and connected. Questions faded, replaced by assumptions. If someone at that level trusted him, others felt safe doing the same. Over time, Epstein's actual financial skill became almost irrelevant. What mattered was perception. And perception, carefully managed, became the foundation of his power.
It's the moment Jeffrey Epstein is asked about his friendship with Donald Trump, and it's going viral today.
4. Strategic friendships. Jeffrey Epstein was never careless about who he associated with. His relationships were not built on friendship or shared values. They were built on strategy. Every connection served a purpose, and that purpose was protection. Epstein deliberately surrounded himself with individuals from vastly different centers of influence: politics, finance, academia, media, and even royalty. This diversification was not accidental. It functioned as a form of insurance. If one institution questioned him, another silently validated him. If scrutiny appeared in one space, legitimacy from another made that scrutiny easier to dismiss. He embedded himself wherever credibility was manufactured. Epstein attended elite fundraisers and exclusive social events. He hosted private dinners that mixed power with prestige. He donated heavily to universities and positioned himself as a patron of science and research. By funding academic projects, he gained access to respected institutions and influential thinkers. places where reputations are carefully protected. Each new relationship added another layer of legitimacy. Each layer made him harder to challenge. When powerful people appear comfortable around someone, others assume that person has already been vetted. Questions feel unnecessary. Doubts feel inappropriate. Silence becomes the default. This is how strategic friendships work at the highest levels. They don't just open doors, they close ranks. They create a network where skepticism is absorbed, deflected, or ignored. Epstein didn't need everyone to trust him. He only needed enough influential people to make distrust inconvenient.
Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein has taken his own life.
Jeffrey Epstein has died by suicide.
5. Academia as a shield. One of Jeffrey Epstein's most effective and least discussed strategies was his deliberate alignment with academia. He didn't just donate money, he embedded himself in respected scientific and educational institutions. Epstein funded research programs, hosted prominent scientists, and positioned himself as a benefactor of intellectual progress. In elite spaces, this mattered. Association with academia carries an assumption of credibility, seriousness, and moral distance from scandal. This strategy served two powerful purposes. First, it reframed Epstein's public identity. Instead of being viewed as a mysterious financier with unclear sources of wealth, he appeared as a patron of science and ideas, a man interested in advancing human knowledge. That image softened scrutiny and redirected attention away from his personal life. Second, it created institutional hesitation. Questioning Epstein meant questioning universities, research centers, and respected academics that had accepted his funding. And institutions are rarely eager to admit they made a mistake, especially when money, prestige, and reputation are involved. Academic partnerships generate legitimacy, and legitimacy creates silence. When influential researchers publicly associate with someone, others assume due diligence has already been done. Doubt becomes awkward. Investigation feels inappropriate. Red flags are reframed as misunderstandings or ignored altogether. In this way, Epstein didn't just buy access, he bought insulation. Academia became a protective layer, one that discouraged scrutiny and delayed accountability. Not because the truth was unknown, but because confronting it would have required powerful institutions to look inward and accept responsibility. 6. The social currency of introductions. Epstein's real power wasn't just money or status, it was access. He didn't simply attend elite gatherings. He positioned himself as the person who could open doors. He introduced politicians to wealthy donors, scientists to benefactors, celebrities to decision makers, and influencers to institutions. In doing so, he made himself useful, and in elite circles, usefulness is a form of currency. When someone becomes the bridge between powerful people, they stop being questioned and start being protected. Their presence is tolerated because removing them would disrupt relationships, opportunities, and influence. Epstein understood this dynamic perfectly. Each introduction increased his perceived value. Each connection made him harder to ignore and riskier to challenge. People didn't just see him as a guest, they saw him as a facilitator, someone who could help careers, fund projects, or create opportunities that otherwise wouldn't exist. That utility created silence. Odd behavior was brushed aside. Rumors were minimized. Discomfort was rationalized. People told themselves that if something were truly wrong, someone else would have spoken up already. But no one wanted to be the person who disrupted the network. Connectors are protected longer than most because they sit at the center of shared interests. Challenging them feels costly. Ignoring them feels easier. Epstein didn't need everyone to like him. He only needed them to need him. And for a long time, that need bought him time, access, and protection, until the system finally broke under its own weight. 7. Leverage through knowledge. Epstein's most powerful tool wasn't wealth or status. It was information. He spent years positioning himself in rooms where sensitive conversations happened. He knew who depended on who wanted access, who needed favors, and who feared public scrutiny. Elite environments naturally generate secrets, and Epstein placed himself at the crossroads of many of them. This created leverage, even when it was never spoken aloud. Power doesn't always require explicit blackmail.